Thank you so much for coming this morning. It's a privilege. I've been here since Friday teaching a 4-year life, and the group asked me yesterday what I was going to preach on, and I said, well, I'm not real sure, but I think I'm going to speak on rebellion. And they went, oh, that's a good one. And I said, we all are familiar with rebellion. I mean, when we have teenagers, those of us that have had children, we're very familiar with what rebellion is. But there's another type of rebellion that I want to talk about today, the sneaky one. And it gives us, it might give us a check in our spirit as to, are we being rebellious and we don't even realize it. I was healed of 14 diseases, including lymphoma cancer. I was diagnosed in 1990 with less than 6 months to live, and I had a little boy fixing to start first grade. And I'd just gone through a divorce, and I felt very alone. My heart was broken, which compromised my immune system. And the medications that the doctors were giving me for a different disease gave me cancer, lymphoma cancer. And I used to have a pretty bad temper. And I remember when the doctors came into the hospital room at Methodist Hospital, downtown Houston, and they wanted to do more biopsies. I told them, I said, are you kidding? I have scars all over me where they were doing biopsies because it was a very rare form of cancer. And I said, what do you mean you need more biopsies? And he said, well, we know it's cancer, we just don't know what kind. Well, nobody had said cancer to me before. And I heard this from the little guy that was going to do some more biopsies. I was so mad, I yanked the telephone out of the wall and threw it at him. And I started screaming, and I told him, get my doctor's rear end in here right now. I want to know what's going on. I'd been in there for 5 or 6 days, and nobody had said cancer. And he came in, and he said, calm down, calm down. I said, no, I want to know what the world are you talking about. I can't have cancer. We live to be over 100 in both sides of my family. I said, nobody dies of cancer. I can't have cancer. And see, even back then, in 1990, I wasn't walking the walk, but I knew that there was something about generations. The doctors always had you fill out all that stuff. Was there diabetes in your family? Was heart disease in your family? And I sat there and I said, no one has ever had cancer. We lived to be hundreds. My great-grandmother was 112 when she died. With a sound mind, I'm going to add. Sound mind. Could barely walk across the room, but she could tell you every one of her great-grandchildren's names, how old they were, and what their birth dates were. And when they told me I had cancer, I said, no way. But I did. I started going through treatments, and a friend of mine, I had moved to Lampasas because my parents owned a Sears catalog store in Lampasas. They had purchased it a few years before, and so I moved from Houston to Lampasas so that when I died, my parents could finish raising my little boy. I talked to his father, and I told him, I said, you and I both know you're not in this father stuff. You're a good father, but you're not a daddy. You're not going to teach him you're not going to sit down and do homework with him. You're not going to teach him how to play ball. You're not going to teach him how to fish and hunt. I said, you kind of have your own agenda. And I said, so I want to pack up my stuff here in Houston, and I want to move to Lampasas. And I want to move close to Mom and Daddy so that when I die, it won't be such a shock for Joseph. Well, that was 29 years ago, and I'm still kicking.